Good
Okay,
afternoon, everybody. And Steve, take us away.
welcome. Thank you all for attending. We hope it's going to be lively, interesting, and useful. Given the nature of things today, a little uncertainty or the amount of uncertainty in our lives has suddenly gone up, and business impact analysis certainly could help us understand that uncertainty and maybe make it a little less certain. So ground rules, typical webinar that you're used to. Feel free to hang out in the chat, send us lots of messages, ask your questions in the chat. Tim is very excited about facing all of your questions. We're going to try to keep this very succinct, maybe 30 minutes, and then have some questions thereafter. We are recording this and we're going to post it on YouTube. We should get it up on YouTube within a day or so. So we've got that going, and introductions. So let me just introduce our speakers. Tim Golden is the CEO of ComplianceRisk.io. However, he also has cred in the managed service provider space, being a founder, owner, CTO, CIO, CISO of what's the other one?
Vital Tech.
Vital Tech. Thank you.
Yeah.
In Dover, New Hampshire. And Aran, if he comes back, is head of partnerships at Synomi, but Aran's really pedigree comes from larger companies, Cisco, NetApp, and he does spend quite a bit of time mentoring both MSPs and startups in Israel. And we'll learn a little bit more about Synomi coming forward. And then my background, 20 years in the channel, working with resellers, VARs, managed service providers, on the sales and marketing side. And I get to be kind of the corraller of the cats on this session. And so looking forward to it. Here's really quick agenda. We'll talk about the importance of planning and business impact analysis. Tim has some tools to walk through and show you, and then we have a couple of calls to action and some opportunities for you all to participate. Yeah, feel free to use the chat. Let us know where you're from. Let us know if you have any questions. And as we said, or at least we implied, that this is the first of a three-part series on educational topics for managed service providers and vCISOs. So with that, I'm going to hand the microphone over to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Tim Golden, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Steve, and thanks for that introduction. And I'm a little bummed that Iran's internet over there kind of flaked out. So part of this we're going to have to wing, but that's all right. We've got this. I'm going to start off today with a little poll. I'll go ahead and launch that right now. You all should see the poll on your screen. Do you use a business impact analysis with your clients? So I'm just going to kind of let that go a little bit here and allow people an opportunity to respond. But as far as why we should be doing BIAs, and again, if you work in the GRC, governance, risk, and compliance space, we are so full of acronyms. So BIA, business impact analysis, right? So you need to be able to just remember that BIA, business impact analysis, good to go. And so, excuse me. So yeah, why should we do these? What are they? And kind of, where's this in the process of working with our client, right? So, I mean, you can see the slide. It's to better serve our clients, to better understand our clients, to better protect our clients, to better and offering value to our clients, and substantially to differentiate, I hate that word, to separate your MSP from other MSPs. When we look at the traditional IT service provider or the MSP space, we've kind of begin to morph through this, strictly break fix to more managed services. And now this whole idea of managed services is tending to become the norm, right? And so we're still traditionally doing that break fix, but on a more managed basis. And we're seeing, at least I'm starting to see from a compliance space, a bigger shift in migration towards like a virtual chief information security officer, vCISO type role, where we are engaging with our clients from a executive position rather than fixing printers, patching machines, installing hardware, whatever, and taking on that vCISO type role. One of the pieces in a vCISO role happens to be a business impact analysis. A couple of weeks ago in our peer group, we talked about privacy impact analysis, right? And these are all just pieces of the puzzle when it comes to a really good governance, risk, and compliance aspect, or a GRC aspect of working with your clients. And ultimately, as you come through these things and you do these exercises with your clients, it'll eventually lead to more project work or more MRR. But I don't like to approach a BIA or a PIA or any of these assessment pieces as a sales tool. I view it more as a readiness tool, or an ability to inform my clients so that they are well served and well prepared. So next slide, Steve.
Sure. Whoops. Whoops. So my quick 2 points on this. Oh, we got Eran back.
Oh,
Yay.
good.
Welcome back.
Oh,
So one of them on the prior slide, talking about more MRR, I always think about this as the value of the MSP, right? What is that company worth? And the more MRR you have, whether it's security products or projects or BIAs, the more valuable your company is going to be. The purpose of this slide with the return on investment is basically just kind of a reminder that if you're thinking about adding a new service, any new service, doing a return on investment analysis is relatively straightforward, relatively simple. And we're happy to work with you on that. We've developed a couple of tools to do that. And, I'd encourage all of us to be a little more analytical when we decide, which projects to add for our clients. That's the point on that. And we'll go to the next slide.
So before we move on, let me just take a second. I know we missed Eran's introduction. We'll be walking through this. Hopefully you'll be, your internet will stay solid along the way, but I just wanted to formally, hey, thanks for joining, and we're glad to have you here. I am going to,
guys,
yeah.
Hopefully I didn't miss a lot of, sorry about that. There was a glitch signing in, and normally presenters are not late for the gameplay, but hopefully we won't we won't go through another crisis here. But go ahead, Tim.
We'll be good. We'll be good. So before we get into the meat of who, what, where, when, and how, let me just share the results of the poll, right? So the question was, do you use a BIA with your clients? And it seems like almost 90%, in fact, 89%, or 8 out of 9 of you that responded said, it depends. And only 1 of you said yes with every client. So whoever said yes, if you're willing and wanting to and able to in chat, let us know that it was you that does it with every client, because that's great. And, and this is really why we're here, is to kind of help break this down in small enough consumable chunks for you to be able to do this with your client. Rather than it depends on the client, we'd love to be able to help you do this with every client, as I'm assuming it was Brian that chose with every client. So Brian's part of our peer group, and he probably had a little bit of this individual and extra training from last week when I went through this with our peer group. So yeah, let's just talk a little bit about how to do a BIA. That's kind of redundant, business impact analysis assessment. Analysis, yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. Excuse me, I'm still fighting that flu from a week or so ago. So there are lots of different tools and templates and pieces and parts and things to consider when doing a business impact analysis. And it all starts with, what do you have where, right? Let me find my Jamboard. I wish I had thought about that earlier, because we did a Jamboard a while back on system categorization, right? So first and foremost, when you're working with your clients, you got to know what they have, right? You got to know what systems are critical to them. Maybe it's email. Iran, what other kinds of things can you think of that might be critical that would have impact on a business?
Well, there's so many other, processes and other platforms that are crucial for pretty much every customer out there. And it really depends on the sector. Some sector are more kind of prone into a more critical type of infrastructure, for example, manufacturing or healthcare. Those guys are really have to be aware to the different platforms that are prone to malfunctions or being hijacked or have the ability to kind of have a redundant type of infrastructure to support their continuous service, and as an ongoing as ongoing support to their clientele and customers. So it's kind of really depends on the specific sector, but in overall, there's a certain amount of different platforms and applications that needs to be really taking into consideration while going through kind of the baseline analysis of what's there, what needs to be protected, what needs to be redundant, how to approach each one of those applications and platforms, and build kind of a typical scenarios of what happened if. So those kinds of things that needs to be kind of under specific consideration in any given time.
Right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Steve, I'm going to steal the screen share real quick, and I'm going to share the Jamboard that we came up with. So first part, you all see in my Jamboard, raise your hand.
And there it is.
Yep. Nice. So the first piece of a BIA is figuring out, what your customer has. We did this as our peer group last week. We kind of all did a brain dump here in Jamboard with various systems and interfaces and stuff that we think that's important to a client. So backup, email, CRM, third-party tools. I'm not going to read it all. Obviously, you can see what I'm sharing here on screen as far as, excuse me, some of the things that we came up with, starting with system inventory. You pick any risk management framework, CIS, NIST, whatever, any RMF framework, it's a risk management framework. They're all going to start with some kind of inventory of stuff, right? So Steve, I'll go ahead and give you back sharing ability, right? Excuse me. So starting with your system inventory and coming up with the critical features and functions within a business. And then working with each of the business units, working with, hey, look, fun stuff, Slack. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So, yeah, go ahead and go back a slide. So, kind of key questions to ask your client. So since you're already working with them, you're going to have a pretty good understanding of what tools and technologies they have. I'm hoping that you probably have already done some kind of inventory of their tools, technology, pieces, parts, and so on and so forth. So I'm hoping that you probably already have that. And then from there, working with each of the individual business units within the organization to make sure that you've captured all of these critical systems, email, backup, line of business applications, phone systems, whatever, depending on, the type of business you're working with, you're going to come up with an inventory of things. And then you're going to be able to continue to work with those individual business units and start to ask them questions, right? So let me just go ahead and pull up this real quick and go back, Steve. I'll steal the screen share one more time. So ready.gov, pretty easy, ready.gov/business impact analysis. I'll drop the link in chat. There are lots of great tools, technologies, and understanding. You can make a BIA as complex as, building the next Ferrari, or you can make it as simple as a ham and cheese sandwich. When I work with clients, I like to start out with the KISS method. We all know that. Keep it simple. Yeah, keep it simple, Sally, or stupid, and start small, right? So
I think there's another complexity team into this one. If you can always have a more complex kind of understanding on how to kind of assess your business impact based on the current inventory.
Mm-hmm.
But in many cases, and this is what we see out there, is that this is kind of a continuous engagement, right? Because most of the organization out there introduce new processes as an ongoing procedure, right?
Correct.
So within let's look in a specific quarter, for example, you introduce new access application, right? Cybersecurity access application. This is something that was on the table for the past 2 months. The project is undergoing, and the implementation will be set for in 2 months from now. This is something that needs to be taken under consideration when you are setting your business impact analysis, because this one will affect the way people are doing internally business.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not talking about third party and other contractual employees of yours that might have another complexity in place for just that same specific solution. So there's 2 layers. There's the inventory which we look at this point. It's kind of a snapshot of where we are, what's the baseline look like, what we are looking at, and what needs to be assessed. But there's another layer of what's going on for the next quarter or 2. What needs to be taken into consideration, what will have effect on the existing kind of different applications and other processes of the business.
Right. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Where was I? So I got totally distracted. I don't know if it was Steve's screen share that got me a little distracted. No, it doesn't matter. Sorry. Let me kind of
we were talking about the tools, the different tools, how complex they are.
So I was just sharing the ready.gov. Let me pull that back up to ready. READY, ready.gov business impact analysis. I'm going to drop that link in chat for you all. Boom, boom, boom. Steve, you have that slide? There we go. Yeah, so you can download that template from ready.gov, the link's in chat, but basically you're looking at kind of 4 pieces of information. The function, the process, the tool, the technology, whether it's email or CRM or whatever, the things from your inventory that you can realize the next pieces of. We talk about, I'm going to throw a couple of terms out here, right? RTO and RPO. Anybody have, I'm going to ask real quick in chat, RTO, do you all know what that is? No? How about you? Go ahead, Steve. What do you think RTO is?
Recovery time objective.
Whoa.
Thank you,
Man.
Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Awesome. Awesome. What about RPO? Aha. Did I throw you with the word P in there?
I need Matt's help. Can I call a friend?
Phone a friend. Do. All right. All right, I'll put it in chat for you. So there are 2 timing pieces. One of them is, actually there's 3 because we talk about Google. We talk about a third one, which actually isn't listed here in this template, and that's medium time, MTD, tolerance of downtime. I always forget what the M stands for. But the 2 big ones that most people are familiar with are recovery time objective and recovery point objective. And as you're working with the individual business units and the owners of some of these tools and technologies and applications that you've discovered as part of the inventory, working with them to determine what is an acceptable downtime and length of time for data and being down, the RTO and the RPO. For us, we have a 4-hour RTO, which basically means I can only be without a particular service for up to 4 hours. After that, like, the impact can be both from a financial, a reputation, customer service. I'll use a client example, since MSPs can kind of relate to this, right? So, healthcare organization, they provide COVID testing. They have an online platform where people can register for appointments for COVID testing. I'm going to speak hypothetically on the cost of goods sold or the COGS around this, so I'm not revealing information about the specific client and what they do. But let's say, for example, the only place that people can register for a test is on their website. And the cost of a test is, let's say, $100. And they book roughly 100 tests a day, whatever, $1,000 a day, right? Break that up over, let's say, a 10-hour period, $100 an hour, blah, blah, blah. Do the math. My math is horrible. I need Marnie from Life Cycle. I see Alex is joining us. Marnie's our math whiz. I need her help. Long way of saying, let's say it's $100 an hour that it would cost them to be down. Okay, so if that is an acceptable level of risk for them, granted, you got to do the math, you got to work the exercise, and you got to understand the cost associated with downtime. Being able to figure out, $100 an hour, not a big deal. But if we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, that could be a big deal, right? So being able to adjust the timing, adjust that financial impact, and getting them to a level of risk that's acceptable for them. And then wash, rinse, repeat for every single one of the things that you've identified as in your system categorization. All right. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so hopefully I didn't explain that too much too fast. Dodged a bullet there. Awesome.
In case they wanted to read it, here's what it looks like in text.
Oh, well, there you go. Perfect. Thanks, Steve. So this can be, as I said, a really complex or a really simple exercise. My suggestion is that you look at, hopefully you have an assessment platform in place. If you don't, you can use this template, you can use Excel, you can use, all kinds of different things that are out there. There's a couple of different platforms that I like to use to manage this. I have a couple GRCs, I have a QBR platform that I use. Synomi as well has opportunities and pieces like this. Maybe Eran, you can talk a little bit about where Synomi might fit into doing these kinds of assessments and readiness factors and so on and so
Right.
forth.
So this is just one tool of a wider tool set that pretty much every MSP or MSSP should have in place in order to assist them with a conversation with their customers. The time that it takes to kind of putting all the pieces together, because there's so many moving parts, is hours on hours of bringing evidence to the table to make sure that you are well qualifying kind of the gap assessment of each and every client. If you multiply by, if it's 1 or 2 clients, that's fine. But if you have hundreds of those, that will take hours and monthly hours of professionals that should put in place this entire documentation of, where are my assets, what the assets looks like, what's their impact in any given time, what's the workflow process that we see out there, what's the impact of, for example, if somebody is going to run somewhere, a big important piece of my data set, and many other questions that need to be asked on, on the customer side to make sure that you're well aware of where the top risk resides and how to mitigate those risks. So automations is a big portion of today's toolkits for cyber professionals, MSSPs, MSPs out there. And it's something that you need to embrace. You need to make yourself aware of the different tools, and it can be assessment automatic assessment tools like Synomi, or other scanning platforms that can assist you to provide with specific evidence for endpoint security, for example, or other tools that allow you to understand where your specific vulnerabilities are from a strategic point of view, and where is the kind of the holes that you need to mitigate on an ongoing basis. So, for example, what we do at Synomi is to provide with the cybersecurity professionals with the ability to have an assessment, which is completely automated, right? It takes you through the whole process within a very short time frame, digest all the evidence into one single pane of glass, where you can assess and understand where you are at any given time and where you should be based on, for example, the sector benchmark, right? Where similar companies that are well protected or their risk environment is well mitigated should be. So this kinds of tools will allow you at the end of the day to be more pragmatic, more proficient about what needs to be done, and capture and have a very clear baseline for the conversation that you have with the management of each one of your customers.
Mhm.
So we really encourage, the professionals out there to seek for tools, any tool that they're assisting them to kind of lower their kind of tedious day-to-day work, capturing this multi data points that needs to be digested and assessed, and have everything kind of centralized, right? And be able to take the relevant insights, so you can build a better business impact analysis at the end of the day.
It makes sense. Yeah. The more like, listen, so I mean, tools are awesome and we love the ability to try to automate stuff as much as possible. Sanomi's got a really great platform for helping with some of that. At the end of the day, when we're talking about BIA, it's going to be consultative. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Consultative in nature, right? There we go. Being able to, again, identify the key areas of the business components inventory, working with the business units that are responsible for those particular pieces of the puzzle. Sales, CRM, customer service, phone system, so on and so on and so forth, working through the individual organization. Identifying the financial impact, identifying the downtime and the cost to recovery and timeline to recovery. A lot of that is going to be consultative in nature, right? So Steve, I don't know what's our next slide, but I was kind of headed somewhere. Call to action, right? So this is a great segue. So if you do have questions, I'm not seeing chat so much getting chatted up over there, but that's all right. I might allow a couple of people to raise their hand and actually come on and chit chat with us in a minute here, but
We do have a few questions in the background.
okay, good. So before we get there, what does this mean for me as an MSP, right? Number one, I'll go back to what we said in the beginning, differentiating yourself from other MSPs in your area, providing additional value to your clients, to helping them prepare for the risks that they face. Take the Slack outage today, right? How many of your clients, I know one of my clients solely what's the word I'm looking for, relies on Slack for internal communication. Slack was out up and down on different platforms for several hours this morning, which meant they potentially didn't have a way to communicate with each other, right? And what is the business impact? What is the financial loss? Yeah, sure, there are other ways, email, text, Google Chat, whatever. There is other ways for them to communicate, but it did have an impact on their business. No, it didn't stop their business, but it did have an impact for them to be able to effectively communicate, across their business units. For us as an MSP, being able to understand what the risks are, show some financial culpability around those risks, and then, oh, wait a minute, you solely rely on Slack for internal communications. Tell you what, you're a Google shop, you have Google Chat at your beck and call as well. You prefer Slack, but from the MSP side, from your CIO leadership side, hey, when this happens, we can do this thing instead. Use Google Chat, for example, right?
So for example, we do the same thing. So we're relying on Slack for internal communication, but at the same time, we use Teams as a backup platform.
Yep, absolutely. Even Zoom has chat capabilities baked into it, whatever. The point that I'm trying to make is that from your inventory and your risk assessment around the downtime and the financial impact, now you can begin to hone in project work, hone in additional tools and technologies as backup alternatives, whatever, to help mitigate those risks and lessen that financial burden of downtime of a particular tool, technology thing that you found in the inventory, and bring on more services to your client, ultimately leading to more MRR and strengthening your relationship with your client and making you more sticky.
Absolutely.
Well, the quick calls to action, if those in the audience want to have a more deeper discussion on business impact analysis with Tim and talk about specific clients or specific situations, then great. If you do want to see not only Sinomi's assessment process, but also the prioritization of the IT projects for MSPs and virtual CISOs, the prioritization is pretty valuable. And then lastly, just kind of as an aside, if you are interested in looking at the ROI of a new service that you're offering, we'd be happy to chat with you about that as well. There is a survey coming up once we end and once you log out. And if you could please complete that survey, maybe Tim could kick it off. That would be very helpful to us. And
Yeah,
with that,
I can do that in a second. I'm now seeing that there are a couple of questions asked in the Q&A section that I might have missed. So an anonymous attendee, that was you, Steve. I knew it was. Seems to be complicated. Is there a light version? What can we start with, a template or something? So yes, I did share the template from ready.gov. It's literally 4 fields. I have other sort of templates and examples and things to work through that are 40 fields. As I said in the beginning, you can make this as easy or as complex as you want. The key here is to understand your client better, to understand the line of business applications that support their business, and help educate them on the risks that they face of downtime of these particular things, especially from a financial perspective.
All right, questions. The big question is, how much do you charge?
Apparently
that's
not.
What everyone wants to know.
Apparently not enough. No, I'm kidding. So that's a good question, right? So how much do I charge, or how much does the MSP charge? So that's the point of clarification. Let's take it from I'll take off my compliance hat. I'll put on my MSP hat, which I don't actually have. I just have the shirt. And I'll talk about it from my MSP perspective, right?
I can share my view as we speak to other MSPs and MSSPs out there, and it's a vast range of pricing. Depends on the granularity of those type of assessments.
Yeah, I would agree that ask any GRC person about pricing and they're going to say it depends. So I'll just use my current clients because of the types of clients that I have and the relationships that I have with the clients. Sometimes I don't even charge them for this because I already have in the back of my head, I already kind of have I know them, they're my clients. I know what they're doing. I have a pretty good sense of what's important to them. And I already have a stack and a set of tools and projects in the back of my head of what I think I can upsell or get more MRR. So I might look at a particular client and go, hey, you're a HIPAA shop and you don't have any SOC or any event monitoring, any SIEM, none of that stuff in place. And so I know that I want to put a SIEM on there. So I'll run through a BIA and I'll kind of point the BIA in a direction of, you really should be doing some kind of monitoring. And because you're not monitoring, you can be leaking data. And if you're leaking data, that can have a financial impact of fines and so on and so forth, right? So I might do a BIA around a particular set of things, knowing I want to sell them on my SIEM. I already know what I'm going to get on the end result. So I might do that for free. I might do that as just part of my ongoing relationship and engagement with my client, because I want to give them a value added tool, and I want to use the BIA as a mechanism to
Correct.
identify the risk and get buy-in from them. And then poof, here's the tool to help fix it.
And justify a further service or a further product sale.
There are
Ryan,
there are other clients that are just purely compliance work. And as part of their regulatory compliance pieces, they need to have this assessment, this thing done, this thing done, this thing done. And I know that it's going to take me, or I best guess it's going to take me X number of hours. I do my math based on X number of hours. I maybe put a 10 or 15% overage there, and I say, okay, it's blah, and give them a price for a BIA based on the number of hours I think it might take.
So we
Or
see
you
those
just-
two models. So
Or
we
you
see
just
those-
flat rate. Hey, we're going to
Exactly.
do this, and it's, I don't know, maybe it'll take 20 hours, but I'm just going to flat rate it at you. And at the end, you just pay me for when I'm done.
So we see the exact same two models in place for MSPs. One that absorb those kind of BIAs processes, but that they limit that to a certain kind of number, either a number of hours
Mhm.
of the assessment, or the granularity of what is actually being assessed during that specific timepiece. So that's one model. So MSPs are absorbing that, and of course, later on, kind of bringing what needs to be done in terms of whether it's kind of affecting my MRR, because I can charge specific platform applications on a monthly base,
Mhm.
or more of that, let's do a greater, deeper assessment that will unveil other kind of gaps, right?
Mhm.
And that, of course, will be paid by, the number of hours or the longevity of the assessment.
Gotcha.
So that's one model. The other model, which is, as you mentioned, Tim, is the one that he said, well, the assessment will cost, a couple of thousands of dollars. It depends, of course, on the size of the customer. But if and when you decide to work with us on closing those gaps, right, and the remediation phase, then we can subtract maybe that amount from the ongoing projects. And this is another model that we see out there. But you can be as simply think outside the box here. There's
Mhm.
plenty of freedom and different ways to kind of put those frameworks together
Mhm.
from business perspective. So it's, if any one of the audience has any idea on how to better approach the customer, because you guys know better than us who's your customers, where are the pain points are, how they react, what's their top priority, and how you can actually drive business with them on a yearly base. So it's in your court, and it's something that you know better than us on how to kind of project this type of service
Mhm.
to your customers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're coming up to the top of the hour, and
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure that we mention the next couple of sessions. And if there is a sign up link for the next session, we could put it in the chat.
I will. I just noticed Brian posted something in chat, and maybe you can summarize that while I grab the Zoom link for the next one.
Let's see. The biggest target needs to be addressed is clients always wanting to be good enough, not at a target of the past. So the bigger problem is you don't know what you don't know. The client may be current and limiting you in business information or might be a new client. But with the changing environment as an MSP, you have to access or assess their risk to themselves and to you, which is a really interesting question, because if they don't understand their risk can travel to the MSP, right? And the MSP has to start absorbing some of that risk.
Mhm.
So a business impact analysis now becomes personal, right? Because it impacts your business and your pocketbook and not just theirs.
Mhm.
So excellent point. Thank you for bringing that one up.
So Brian does bring up a good point, and this is something that we're going to talk about in our upcoming sessions, and that is sort of downstream or side stream risk, right? So if your client is at risk, you, by way of proxy, are assuming some of that risk, right? And or taking on some of that risk. So the next session that we'll be doing is all about understanding risk, business risk and business continuity planning. The link is in chat. We'll post the link with the webinar on the recording after. We'd like you to, we're going to be doing these every Tuesday for the next 2 weeks, same bat time, same bat channel. Again, the registration link is in chat, but Brian, you make a good point, like second, third, or fourth party risk. And that's what we're going to be talking about in our upcoming sessions.
So hope to have everybody at the next sessions. If you need to get a hold of us, our email addresses are on the screen. And we look forward to some more chat. Any final comments before we close up?